Details of the Mountain West Conference's MOU. Conference realignment is always in the news, so we're back on the Big Mountain to keep you updated. Hey, it's great to have you back here on the mountain. I want to do an update regarding the MOU that 7 of the Mountain West members have signed. We saw some details come out here several days ago. There was reporting through the Albuquerque Journal, and that's what I'm going to mainly be using here, of course, putting some of my opinions on that. And at the very end, I want to get into whether or not this is binding or not. Whether or not this MOU is actually binding. I know there's a lot still out there about UNLV and the PAC and what may be going on. We'll get to that at the end. But let's break down first where the money is going to be going. And there's many different buckets here that they're going to be using. So the first bucket is $61 million, the first $61 million that is collected. Now this would be through both the poaching penalties and through the exit fees. So the exit fees of the 5 members and the poaching penalties through the PAC. And I'm going to summarize this here towards the end because there's many items involved. But the first $61 million, 24.5% will be going to UNLV and to Air Force. 11.5% will be going to San Jose State, New Mexico, Nevada, and Wyoming. And then the last 5% will be going to Hawaii. The next chunk after that first $61 million is $18 million that they're setting aside, holding in reserve, that is going to be used to cover the expenses associated with recruiting new members to the conference. For 5 new members to the conference, that's about $3.6 million per school. So if you remember with UTEP, who is their first new member, there was reporting that it's about $7 million that they have to pay to leave Conference USA. 3.6 is about half. We don't know if the Mountain West is covering that, but it would make sense that they have about 3.5. If you take that 18 million, 3.5 that they could be using for UTEP and potentially more, depending on where that goes. Now, in terms of FCS schools, of course, the 3.6 is a pretty sizable chunk of that $5 million that is needed for an FCS school to move up to FBS. Yes, there's other requirements that that school has to take on, but in terms of the dollar figure to move, certainly the Mountain West could be contributing a sizable chunk of that $5 million for those schools. The next chunk then, so we talked about pot 1, pot 2, the third pot of money is $21 million. So these first 3 pots get you to $100 million in total. And that third pot will be distributed just like the first pot. So that $24.5 million to UNLV Air Force, the $11.5 to the other 4 schools, and then 5 to Hawaii. After that, once you get past the $100 million, the next chunk would be used to pay all the legal and other expenses that they may have through this whole, both the legal issues that they're having right now with the PAC, whether or not they're going to be countersuing there, but also any legal issues they have with bringing new membership on. So all the legal fees will be paid for by these monies as well. After that has been paid, so that's kind of the fourth pot, anything left over will be distributed to the membership by percentage 15.83% to all 6 full members, and still that 5% to Hawaii. So after they get through those first 3 buckets and they pay all of their legal fees, anything left over does get shared equally to the 6 full members. So I just want to assume here that let's just say they get $140 million that's owed to them. Remember, that's $55 million for the poaching penalties from the PAC and $85 million from the exit fees. So that's totals your 140. And I'll throw something up on the screen here. Just, I think it's easier than hearing me talk about it. But obviously the 2 schools that are getting the biggest chunks of the pie, UNLV and Air Force, will be getting just over $25 million of that $140 million. The other 4 full members, Nevada, New Mexico, San Jose State, and Wyoming, will get about $15 million. And then Hawaii will get about $6 million of the $140 million. Now, will it be 140? Will it be a little bit less, more? We'll have to wait and see exactly. But I think that's a pretty good guesstimate of where these schools are going to end up. So both UNLV and Air Force kind of getting that $10 million increase in order to stay here with the Mountain West. Let's talk about some other pieces to this. Media rights. And I really found this part pretty interesting. The MOU actually states that every full member will receive a minimum of $3.5 million per year in media rights money. That frankly makes a lot of sense to me. I think this is the low mark of the New Deal. Clearly, they kind of know either through talking with their media, their existing media contracts with Fox and CBS and TNT, or with consultants. I doubt the Mountain West would have put a number in that was drastically higher. They don't want to have a big gap that they have to fill. So I think $3.5 million is that low watermark for them. And I've been talking about that on X. I know a lot of PAC folks will tell you how awful the media rights are going to be for the Mountain West, but I think 3.5 is a solid floor for them, and obviously depending on who they bring in will drive how much higher that can go, and that's what they're working on right now. We'll get to that here at the very end of the episode as well. Another piece they talked about was basketball. The Mountain West tournament will stay in Las Vegas. It will stay at the Thomas and Mack Center. Steve and I talked about that last year when we followed a little bit of the basketball. We're mainly football focused here, but we got on some of the basketball. Just a phenomenal venue there. It was fantastic to watch on TV, a venue I'd love to visit someday. Also, the Mountain West offices, upon the expiration of the current lease in Colorado Springs, will be moving to Las Vegas. The MOU states that it will continue there. The offices will remain there through the term of the MOU and the grant of rights agreement. I'll get back to that here in a minute. A couple other quick things it talks about is any school can leave the membership of the Mountain West at no penalty if they get an invite from one of the Power Four conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC. Very similar to what you're seeing the PAC do there as well. It also says the MOU can be modified with approval of 3/4 of the members. So let's talk a little bit about, is this binding? Nobody really knows. Is the MOU binding? Is it a true contract? Can they still get out of it? What's going on? So I don't have the facts necessarily, but I'm going to tell you what I think is happening here. And MOUs, typically they're not binding, but they can be binding. If there's specific criteria, specific language put in an MOU, it can be just as binding as a contract. I can't say whether or not that's the case with this MOU, but we do know, and I talked about it just a little bit ago, that there's a grant of rights agreement that is also in play here. Well, certainly if they have now signed on to a grant of rights agreement, or at least are committing to do so through the MOU and language in the MOU that they're going to be doing so, to me, I'd say this is pretty binding, like any contract would be. I'm not sure why the members and the conference would allow a binding type of contract right now. Really, the only hiccup to that was when Utah State kind of changed their mind right at the last minute, did not sign the MOU. I'm going to say maybe played games a little bit, because we reported on what the AD at Wyoming had to say about that. It was really a surprise to the other members that they kind of grabbed their bags and ran at the very last minute. So that's why things kind of took a little bit longer when we first heard about the MOU. Then Utah State went away. Then, of course, everybody was thinking UNLV might be going as well. That didn't happen. Again, to me, this is binding. UNLV is off the table for the PAC. They will be with the Mountain West. And quite frankly, with everything they're doing here, the tournament being in Las Vegas, the offices moving to Las Vegas, I don't think it's just a UNLV issue. You've heard Steve and I state Las Vegas is a market you want to be in. They're going to grow out of Las Vegas, and that is a huge win for the Mountain West. So I love everything about what they're doing here. I also need to keep spouting in Gloria we trust. She was able to keep 7 of these schools within the conference. She should be absolutely commended for doing so. And as I said, really, it was only Utah State that kind of changed their minds there. The other 4 kind of went off and did their thing because that's what they chose to do. It was really just Utah State. She really kept everybody but that one school there when they were going through this MOU. So again, I can't say enough positive things about Mrs. Gloria Nevarez. I do want to just end this with additional members. We talk about this a lot. I tweet about this a lot, or X about this a lot. Of course, we know what has been made public so far. We know Hawaii as a full member has gotten a lot of press. And I've really come around to that. At first, I'm thinking, why would you do that with the travel and XYZ? And the more I looked at that and the value there, and there is a subsidy to be paid for that travel. They're paying both the Mountain West for football and the Big West for their other sports. So there is a travel subsidy to be paid there. And you will increase your media value with Hawaii. You will. It's another time slot that nobody has. People bring up the gambling piece, and that is actually a real thing. I know some people throw shade at that, but people do chase their bets in Vegas at the very end, and that is the last game they have to bet and the last game that's on the big screen TV. So there's media value there. I could see that being happening for the Mountain West and the University of Hawaii. The other ones we know about, Northern Illinois and Toledo, kind of the first 2 that came out early on because Gloria Nevarez went to the commissioner of the MAC and had communication that they may be reaching out to those schools the way, you hear some people saying the way it is supposed to be done. You don't hear too much of that these days in conference realignment, but that is what she did. The last that I heard, there haven't been specific details given to the schools or even any sort of invite given to or any sort of talk about that. We'll see if that comes. I really like the idea of getting into the central time zone. That also gets us to Tarleton State. A lot of buzz about a week and a half ago about Tarleton State. Of course, that's an FCS school. I'm high on them. That gets you into Texas. That gets you into the central time zone. I hear people throw shade about, oh, they're this and nobody knows they're there. Hey, you get who you can get in Texas right now. It's growing population. It's huge for recruiting. It's the time zone that you want. There's a lot to like about that school and others, but I really like Tarleton. And we haven't heard anything else about FCS schools. I know a lot of people like to talk about Sacramento State. They love to talk about themselves right now. We have not heard any specific dealings between the Mountain West and Sacramento State. It's a market I think the Mountain West absolutely should be looking at. And, there's a lot about the Dakotas that people like. I just don't know if that's a bridge too far. Certainly, if you get Northern Illinois and you're committed to that central time zone, that just elevates those brands even higher for the Mountain West. I'm not 100% sure if they're there yet. The last thing that I will say is the AD of Wyoming did say there are several FCS schools on their board. So I don't think it's just Tarleton. There's going to be a few others that they have on their board that they're going to be looking at. So really interesting stuff here for the Mountain West. As you guys know, we will keep you up to date. Apologize a little late getting this out. I was gallivanting around the Atlantic Ocean, but we're all back now, and we're going to be doing our live episodes and everything like that, and we will keep you up to date here on the mountain. So with that, hey, I thank you guys for watching this. Make sure you give it a like and subscribe if you like our content. If you're not already subscribed, become a mountain dweller. I do everything Mountain West. I am a Mountain West cheerleader, and that's what we do here on the mountain. Steve's Big Ten, and I am Mountain West. So with that, we thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time on the Big Mountain.